Welcome back to part 2 of round 3's treatment for Aiden and his battle with AML. And I pulled out the actual journal that I had been keeping during this time. So it's not very pretty, but I just wanted to show that we did have it, and I was looking at just some of the things that we would write down during that time. So I would write down day 18 of round 3, and he was having mucositis, and what his, he had a fever that day, and what time the fever was, and all this information would be what I could report to the doctors at rounds, or if they had any questions, because they just come in and say, hey, how are you feeling? Or, what's going on now? And so then you can actually have it. You don't have to rack your brain. You just pull out the book and open it up. So. And
all this we got during rounds, and I guess the refresher of what rounds are is Rainbows was a semi-teaching hospital. They would have a bunch of folks come around, the doctor, a fellow, maybe a few nurses, a child life specialist.
Maybe interns.
So there was probably, I would say, at the most 10, maybe 5 or 6, on average, that would come around for rounds, and they would talk about the plan for the day. And this journal became instrumental to us because if we were switching on a particular day, we needed to know what happened during rounds that day. A lot of times they would talk about some things. A lot of the testing would be done an hour before rounds, so they would get all those results, so they would give them to us, so we knew what was going to happen during the day. So this way, if we switched, if Kim was coming in, I could tell her, say, hey, this is everything we have in the book. I could not miss a day on the book. So it was important to make sure that the book was updated. So I don't think I ever missed a round.
Even when Grandma was there, Grandma kept notes in there.
Exactly.
So when we left off, it was Thanksgiving time, and just a few more days of round 3, but I had some pretty big journal entries. So this is day 104, day 22 of round 3, and I said, Aiden is at the point of his hospital stay where they are trying to wean him off of anti-nausea medicine and the extra antibiotics he is on. He got a little nauseous today, and you do not want to throw up when you have mucositis, because that was like irritation all in his throat and everything. That happened to Aiden once today, and I do not want to see that happen again. I felt so bad for him. So we're learning to ask quickly for the Ativan and Zofran. Aiden just got a dose of anti-nausea and pain meds, so he's in the game room playing Call of Duty Black Ops. I feel bad because there are a couple of boys up here that Aiden hangs out with, but they're all feeling crappy at different times, so they haven't met up yet this round. The child life specialist is trying to get a Nerf target competition going for tomorrow. I hope they can all show up and have fun. Today, Aiden's ANC was 50. I get so excited when we get these little jumps. This is the number that has to be 200 to go home. With a 50, we can be pretty confident we'll be going home in about a week. Maybe a little sooner or a little later, but it's so close I can taste it. I really, really, really hope that Aiden can go home while we have at least some of our Christmas vacation. Carlos and I have to work when Aiden is home normally, so it would be absolutely wonderful to just all be home together to just relax and have fun and enjoy each other. I really hope that works out. I'm about 99% sure we will be in the hospital for Christmas, so we will deal with that, but I'm really going to push them to hit that vacation time. Carly update. What a difference 8 hours makes. Whoa, we went from a hysterical phone call at 7:45 this morning because she couldn't find the Scotch tape that she needed for her science experiment to a very happy and excited phone call because she couldn't wait to tell me about her science board and presentation. I'm so grateful to her teachers. They're being so understanding and helpful to Carly during this difficult year. Carly's science fair project was due on Tuesday, and we were going to finish it on Monday night, but I had to go to the hospital. Her teachers helped her get everything finished, and she was so excited to tell me about it today when she got home. That phone call made my day. So I said thank you to all her teachers, and I can't wait to see Carly's finished board. And then I put prayers needed. One of Aiden's friends on Rainbow 2 has had 2 bone marrow transplants that have not worked. He has to undergo surgery this Thursday to take out his spleen before they try the bone marrow transplant again. Please pray for him and his family. He's 7 years old, and he's from Cleveland. We've gotten to know so many of the families up here. You practically live together, so you can't help it. We see each other walking around in PJs and heating up breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We've gotten pretty close with a few families, and we're breaking the ice with a couple others. One of the families dropped off some goodies for Aiden today when they came for their weekly doctor's visit. We all belong to this weird little club now that you don't want to join, but once you're in, it's a definite bond. I really hope the weather and roads are not bad tomorrow morning as my parents bring Carlos's mom up to the hospital again for a 2-night stay. I have to be back at work by the afternoon to get my half day in. Our extended family has been right in this with us, providing rides, food, movies, care for Carly, and running around for us. Our friends and family are awesome, and we love you.
Couple things on this. First of all, I don't think we've set the picture about what northeastern Ohio winters look like.
Yeah, that gets mentioned a lot.
Yeah, especially in Ashtabula County, where we're from. It's the snow belt, right? So anytime you call something the snow belt, it's not a couple inches of snow. I mean, when we get hit, it's, usually measured in feet and not inches. And Kim's not a fan of winter weather driving.
No.
So she tries to stay away from that. But boy, you really championed through a lot of, coming up to the hospital when, there was snow on the ground. I mean, she won't even do it to this day. She doesn't even like driving to work, which is, 2 minutes down the road when it's snowing like that. But, we had to power through.
The snow days, though.
Yeah, but we had to power through a few extra days, getting up to the hospital because, if Kim missed a certain amount of days, her health insurance and things like that would be in jeopardy. So, we didn't have the luxury of
had to get there.
Calling off, more than 2 days in a row. If she hit that third day, then there would be some consequences to that. So we
were not. Yeah,
we were not playing around with that. And the other thing, you mentioned this other kid who was going through some, medical problems, and had the surgery. This is somebody that Aiden kind of connected with because he was, when we went out to the nurses station, this patient's father was somebody that Aiden connected with his son. Yep. And, so we were always kind of keeping an eye on how things was going with him. And we would try to keep Aiden updated because, he would ask on occasion if that child wasn't around to interact with Aiden. He kind of wondered what was going on.
Yeah, they were close. And when someone doesn't show up, down in the game room or whatever, like he for sure asked what was going on. So I think it's day 25. Not sure. We'll check tomorrow. Aiden's mouth pain is finally subsiding. I don't think he had any morphine today. His ANC was 90 today, but his platelets are still dropping. They have to climb 2 in order to go home. He's hovering around 30, and if it goes below, he'll get an infusion of platelets. I've been home for 2 days, and both days I had to call the hospital for issues. This is getting ridiculous. The first time, the nurse was playing doctor and didn't want to give Aiden his morphine, and she wasn't going to let him shower before changing his dressing over his Broviac because it was close to shift change. And I put, what? First, I spoke directly to her on the phone to get things straight, and then I called the supervisor. that is so absurd. I just don't understand them sometimes. I think I can tell which nurses actually have kids and who doesn't. Geesh. I would just go through the roof if they just made things more complicated for Aiden or caused any more grief or stress or pain for things. The second phone call was to the primary nurse practitioner because they scheduled an echocardio test when I wasn't there, and Aiden freaked out and he refused to go. I got on the phone again and asked them to reschedule for when I could be there. Duh. They made no mention of needing this test when I was there a day and a half earlier. The nurse practitioner told me they weren't even supposed to order it for that day, just overzealous residents jumping the gun. So I'm glad Aiden refused to go because that would have been a trip off the floor, which always carries a risk of germ exposure. Aiden is nervous about this test because they have to go near his Broviac line, and he hates that. I have to have a long talk with him about this because this test is so necessary to make sure his heart isn't being affected by the chemo. We need it strong for the next round, which will bring a new drug that is very potent. So I will go to the hospital tomorrow after work, and then Carlos will return Sunday, and we'll just be waiting for the counts to come up. And I wrote that his friend made it out of the surgery today, and it's going to be a critical next couple days for him. Please continue to pray.
So I'm going to put something out here. So that may not seem like a big thing, right? You know, hey, we got to do this test. We're going to come do this test. And but Kim mentioned, you know, in part one of this, that anytime something is going to be done, so in this case, he's going to go off the floor. She'd mentioned in her journal entry, you know, he's going off the floor. He is not part of the HEPA filter. You know, there could be people walking around with, you know, diseases and wanting to touch him on the face, you know, and, you know, and all this stuff. She is thinking the absolute worst of what could happen. And unless she is there to control that environment, it gives her a lot of anxiety. And even if it was me, you know, I would get a list of, you know, well, be careful for this, and, you know, zombies walking the hall and wanting to lick his face, you know, and, you know, I mean, I would get a list of things that I would have to be aware of and make sure to report back that none of those, you know, worst case scenarios happen. But this brings her at high intensity. You know, Aiden is already at some intensity level, and sometimes the two of them together get to the explosion point, right? So I think Aiden had a lot of fears about what was going to be happening because of his sensory issues and the Broviac, but I don't know how much of that was, you know, hey, let's power through. You know, Dad would be like, you know, hey, let's power through this. Let's get this behind us. You know, let's make this history, you know, and then we can go do something instead of waiting for it to happen on Monday, right? You know, that's how Dad would handle it. But I'm not in charge of health and safety. She's in charge of health and safety. So she makes those final calls, and it was probably the right one. But these are some situations where we would handle some of these things just a little bit differently. And when there's a tie, you know, when it comes down to
Text
it,
to me.
I check to Kim because, you know, she is going to make the best decision for students or patients or her family, right?
I've always, for both kids when they were little, you know, when we were young parents, we didn't have a lot of things on the internet like they do now to go to get all the tips and tricks and how to make everything the easiest. But what I would do is just try to prepare them, like if we had to go to a doctor's visit, if they were getting their shots or things like that, you know, I didn't lie to them. I told them what to expect. So it was just that kind of thinking, you know, just to be prepared for things. So, and
one last thing before you get to the next one. So, you know, so if you were a nurse at the hospital, right, and you were just doing your daily protocols where 9 out of 10 patients, you know, this is not an issue, right? You know, we do this all day, every day. Why is Kim calling the nurse supervisor? Why is she calling, you know, other people in the hospital for, you know, hey, I do this on a daily basis. 9 out of 10 patients don't even question what we're doing, you know? So did that give Kim a little bit of a reputation. Maybe so, but we knew Aiden, and we knew that this could set Aiden off. And during this round, Aiden started really exhibiting some frustrations, some things that, maybe we'll get into a little bit more, but, he really started expressing himself, maybe not in the most socially acceptable way. And, we had to kind of try to reel that back in a little bit. I think we kind of let that go because of the, circumstances we're in.
Well, and also in one of our previous episodes, we talked about having a care plan for him, right? And I don't know if this showering before the dressing change was for comfort or just because that was his routine, or if it was preventing something for him. But there was a reason why we did that. There was a reason. And then some rando, I'm sorry, came in and just changed that routine because she felt like it. I didn't think that was okay. So that's why. Mm. And I don't remember the exact care plan. It might have been in there.
Well, and as things came up, we added stuff to the care plan too. So that if it wasn't in on that day, it was the next day that it was in the care plan.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention about this is that, if you watch Grey's Anatomy and when we talk about the residents, they have that group of residents that they're not the doctors yet, but they fight over getting to do things. And so when they're calling for, when they're at rounds and they're like, oh, he needs this test done, they don't mean run out and schedule it right now. They know that it could be, scheduled later, but they get overzealous, like she said. Okay, so I came to the hospital on Friday night and Aiden's counts were 100 and his mouth pain was a lot better, but he still wasn't eating. I was told he needed calories because he's been losing a lot of weight. So Saturday, I just started putting things in front of Aiden to see if that would entice him, and sure enough, once he realized he could chew again without pain, he went crazy. He hasn't had a meal yet, but he ate cereal and peanut butter and chips and Cheetos. Like I heard another parent say up here before, hey, a calorie is a calorie. They had another tournament up here on Rainbow 2 last week, and this time it was a Nerf gun target competition. They drew different shapes on the windows worth different values, and they kept score. An older boy won the tournament, but he got to go home, so the trophy is back in Aiden's room. The child life specialist said that Aiden's legacy will be these tournaments. They never had them before, and she can't see not having them in the future. They really do break the ice for a lot of the kids getting to know each other. Even though Aiden's ANC hit the 200 mark yesterday, and it's even higher today, they are keeping him until Monday or Tuesday because 1, his platelets are still low. 2, he needs to get the echocardio test done Monday. And 3, he has had slight traces of blood in his urine that is slowly going down, but they have some tests pending about that need to come back. The good news is they told us we can go home 14 straight days. The doctor said, go ahead and have your Christmas on the 18th. Aiden won't have to come back to the hospital until the week of the 21st. We were going to scramble to get everything ready for Christmas on the 11th, but now we don't have to. I'm very happy about that. Aiden will be able to get home, rest up, get reacclimated, and stronger before our big party. I'm waiting for Carlos to come up to the hospital today. If the weather allows. Last night I had my first, oh my gosh, I may be snowed in at the hospital moment. Well, I always said I hoped it would happen when I was at the hospital, not at home. We were going to make the switch one more time so I can go home and put things away that I'm bringing home from the hospital and clean. I'll bring everything except absolute essentials since we know he's coming home in a day or two. And Aiden's friend made it through the surgery wonderfully and is back in his regular room already. No more PICU. His dad said his counts came right up after they did the surgery. Now they're waiting to try the bone marrow transplant again. That poor family has been in this hospital since June or July with no break. That kid has not gone home once. Yesterday, I saw a new mom on the floor. I could tell because her eyes and nose were red, red, red from crying, and they were giving her the tour. I wanted to say to the PCA that was showing the mom around, she won't remember any of this. Don't waste your time. I get emotional over this because I just remember it. All the feelings come back up. My new friend, who is the baby that they were rocking all the time. I got close to his mom. She spoke to the new mom. I guess her 4-year-old daughter. Where did I put it? She was just diagnosed with ALL. Hold on, I lost a page. The little girl was just diagnosed with ALL, and I compared notes, and the baby's mom and I compared notes, and we both went through the same emotions and behaviors when our kids were first diagnosed. So instead of letting that mom hide away like we did for the first 2 rounds, the baby's mom reached out to her and started a conversation. Even though she probably won't remember it, she'll remember her. And when the time is right, she'll have someone to talk to. The picture, and then I posted that picture of Aiden and that baby on the couch together. So we'll be out of here by Tuesday, December 6th for sure. Tuesday is the day that baby gets his bone marrow transplant. So please pray for a speedy engraftment, that the new marrow takes quickly and he has a strong count recovery. So that was a whole nother part of being up there, is just getting to know all these families and all these little kids, and everybody's going through all these different things, and it's very emotional.
Well, and it's a community that you don't want to be a part of, but is necessary. And I didn't communicate too much with too many folks on the floor, just at the nurse's station. Otherwise, I was doing work. During the time I was up there, I really had to kind of stay on top of a bunch of things, and and was focusing on Aiden. Unless it was late at night, I didn't venture out to talk to too many people. So it was, but Kim was able to. It's a community of parents, but it's a tight-knit community of mothers, right? Because that's a whole different level of nurturing and caring and bonding and communicating and helping each other pick each other up.
But we didn't until about round 3. Until we finally in round 3 started talking, and she kept to herself, I kept to myself, everybody up there kind of, but you feel for each other.
Sure.
And have that connection through what you're going through. So to end this, I wrote on this day, we are home. This is December 7th. Sunday, December 5th, the doctor said we would probably go home Monday evening, pending the completion of the echocardio test. So Monday morning, I woke up at the crack of dawn to find out when we were scheduled for that test. At 8 o'clock, the secretary said they would not give her a time. And then 10 minutes later, they were at our door to take us for the test. The bad thing about that was that Aiden was still sleeping and woke up to the shock of having to go for a test that he was really nervous about. Aiden has 2 Broviac lines coming out of his chest, and when they do this test, they have to roll that wand thing all around your chest near your Broviac, and he wasn't having it. That was so traumatic for him. I felt so bad. The child life specialist went with us, and even all of her tricks didn't work. They got a few pictures of his heart, but probably not enough. They will have to repeat it when he is sedated for his bone marrow test. I was like, well, if I knew that was an option, we would have went with plan B from the get-go. When we got back to our room, the nurse changed Aiden's dressing, and the doctors came for rounds and told us we were free. Carlos and Carly got to the hospital right then. We loaded up a cart and a wheelchair with all of our stuff, and we left.
Thank goodness.
So, those are just the little things too that I would kind of push hard for. Like, if you could have done the test when he's like under sedation, and we already said he has sensory issues, right? And I think at this point, like, we know that, or we're suspicious of that a little bit. But they don't know that, but still.
Well,
he was freaking out.
Yeah. So a couple of things about this. They learned about his sensory issues through our care plan, and they started experiencing some of the what we termed as quirks with Aiden a little bit more this round, right? They started kind of pushing some of his boundaries that he wasn't,
Right.
willing to let people cross those lines. And, I think it was around this time where, he kind of stopped having the teacher at Rainbow. There was a licensed teacher that was at Rainbows and, would teach the lessons to this, to the patients, right? He would get all the work from school. I think Aiden had pretty much kicked him out at this time, and
if it wasn't at this point, it does happen.
It does happen,
like,
and round 3 was, I think, the start of, we started having a little bit more invasive things happening to him, starting with the cauterization of his nose.
His nose, and then the horrible mucositis, and
and all this stuff, that really started testing his patience. And I think a lot of, the times where he would just be quiet, I would videotape him every day for Facebook, and every day I would ask him questions, and he would be like, he really wouldn't say much, so I would kind of narrate what was going on with him that day and stuff. But I think at this point he had just kind of about had enough. I think the one thing he was looking forward to was getting home around Christmas time. We did move Christmas up and had the family over a week or two before actual Christmas. So everybody accommodating us while they were still at work, and people were on Christmas break. But the family accommodating us for that, doing that, and doing a Christmas with Aiden during that time, I think was special for him. I think it was kind of the last break and something for him to look forward to before round 4, which is getting more intense, and then things are starting to get intense with him as well.
Yeah, and Christmas, we're gonna have, if not a whole episode on that, it'll definitely be we'll cover like what that break was like, because getting to go home for 2 weeks was that was a Christmas gift to us. Like that, to hear that, I was so excited. Yeah. But then that meant being in the hospital for Christmas. Yeah. So we have a lot to share about that too. So we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.